Dave Josephsen there, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, guys. Um, the first thing I want to do is apologize for my rather punchy title. I don't really know what was up with me when I wrote the titles to either of the talks I'm about to give today. I was evidently having a bad day. But I wasn't trying to imply that you guys were lazy. This actually started sometime around like 2002, 2003, when we, a small band of renegade systems administrators, had managed to turn the battleship we were working for and had replaced BMC Patrol with Nagios. And we were just about almost immediately in danger of losing Nagios because it didn't have integration with this really horrible ticketing system called Support Magic. And so we undertook basically to write a whole bunch of glue. You know, we did what systems administrators do. We hacked up a whole bunch of glue and Perl. We plugged them into global event handlers, and everyone was happy until systems got added and services got added and things started to not scale. And eventually I started digging into the event broker module interface and found that it was a really, really awesome interface that totally would solve all of my problems in just no time whatsoever. And then I still drug my feet for like a year because, it was all working and coding in C is hard, and I just, I couldn't bring myself to scrap all of the work that we had done and rewrite it all as they should be, as they should have been written, in the first place as event broker modules. But when I finally did it, I was very, very happy with the result. That's two varies, in case anyone's keeping track. And I thought to myself, I should probably tell people about this so that they won't, be lazy like I was and not write event broker modules for things that deserve it. So this talk is for systems administrators. I'm not a developer. I've always been pretty much a fully functional sysadmin. I know, the languages that sysadmin normally know. The talk is here to sort of introduce you to the NEB interface and get you kind of started with, how you start. We're not going to get into full-blown, instructional. Let's hack out an NEB module today, obviously. So if you're already somebody who's dug into the headers, this talk is probably beneath you. But if you're just a sysadmin and you're like, hey, I have a whole bunch of kind of expensive automation written in like Perl, Python, whatever, and I'd like to replace it with something that's going to run a lot faster and be a lot less resource intensive, this talk is for you. And then there's some rational self-interest there at the bottom. If I can't use your Perl, I've seen your Perl, and I can't use it. I can't bring myself to use it. But if you wrote like a really awesome event broker module, I might be able to use it. So I'm encouraging everyone to try so that hopefully I can make use of your results. So here's how we're going to do this. The first thing we're going to talk about is function pointers because it sort of depends on how you learned C. If you learned C in a university, you know all about function pointers, and again, play with your iPhone or go to one of the talks. If you're a systems administrator and you learn C mostly through books and looking at other people's C, you've probably not been introduced to function pointers because very few books teach them because they're hard to teach, quite honestly. It's one of those things you'll see. You teach it and it's like, why would I ever use that? But writing any sort of plugin, the first time I learned about function pointers was when I was plugging around in the APR headers trying to write Apache modules. But for any sort of any module-y SO type thing that you end up writing in your systems administrator career, function pointers are going to be pretty much the thing that enables all of it. It makes it makes plugins possible, basically, in C. Then we're going to look at what the event broker actually is, and then how we use it, and then I'm going to give you a very few words of advice to things to avoid, things to look for to help you out get started. And then I thought we'd, if we had time, dissect a couple of the existing plugins, and I chose two. The first one is one that I wrote. It's one of the few I can share, and I wrote it mostly as an instructional sort of plugin. It is functional. It's called NAGFS, and what it does is it listens to state changes from the Nagios daemon. So this is like whenever a service goes not okay into warn, even into soft not okay. NAGFS creates a file system that you can pretty much grep through. So you can, you can find on a file system, and you'll get back a list of files that correspond to servers and services. And if you cat those files, you'll have, a 0, 1, 2, 3, which corresponds to the the state of the thingy. And then DNX, I think everybody knows what DNX is, yeah. So DNX is actually is really cool. It's just there on the cusp of something that we can talk about and understand without it being like, crazy complicated. And they do some really interesting things. They spawn a daemon, which is really interesting. They do preemption of service checks, which is also really interesting. So it's a good code base to look into if you're getting into writing event broker modules, because it's very beautifully written, and they do a really good job, and they do interesting stuff in there. So function pointers. Up here at this is a program that converts Fahrenheit to Celsius or Celsius to Fahrenheit. It's pretty simple. Up here we define two sort of classical functions, and this is what you're used to seeing. This is a function called C to F. It returns an int and takes as an argument a single argument of type int, which is C, obviously, Celsius. It returns the quantity 9/5 times Celsius plus 32. So this is what we're used to seeing in terms of, C. We get in there, we're like, okay, yeah, this is a function declaration or whatever, and it's actually more than a declaration. It's the entire function on one line. But that's pretty much what we're used to seeing. We get down here. Oops, ignore that. Does anybody know on a MacBook how to go backwards? I'm usually a ThinkPad person, and my what is it? Upper left. Oh, there we go. Cool. Sorry about that. So evidently, when you click, it changes slides. So. Important safety tip. So then we have this convert function, and it starts out pretty normal. It returns an int. It takes as its argument an int called input, and then what is that thing, right? Well, that's a function pointer. And if you look at it, like the first time you see one, you're like, what do I have like here? Is it like a pointer of type int, or what is this? What this actually is it's a mini function declaration that's kind of stuffed into another function declaration, right? So what we see here is actually a function called fpointer. It's actually a pointer to a function. So the function pointer is called fpointer in this case. It returns an int, and it takes a single argument of type int. So this is really weird. Like, why would you ever want to pass a function to another function? Well, if you look down here at this go function that we've declared, you'll see that we're actually passing the address of one of these two functions to the convert function. So this works kind of like a switch case, right? Like, so we can change the behavior of this program by choosing which function to pass to convert. And now you see why no one ever teaches this in books, because you just use a switch case if you're doing this. So it's kind of a non-obvious thing, and it's something that you'd never use in your day-to-day C programming. But the ability to pass a function to another function is sort of core to the concept of how we pull off event brokers and plugins in C in general. Anytime we want to spin up at runtime and say, hey, is there a function declared to go do anything here? We want something at runtime to be able to pass us a function if there is one. Does that kind of make sense? It'll get clearer as we move on, but that's the basic concept. And really, it's not. I say that it's weird, but it's not weird. From the point of the assembler, all labels really are just pointers to address space. So, a label that corresponds to a variable is really, from the assembler's point of view, no different than a label that corresponds to a function. It's pretty much implied. It's just not something that you'd normally think of if you learn C from a book like I did. So let's take a look at what the event broker actually is. On this side, where's my mouse? On this side, I have a